So we're going to do something a little bit different today. So today is Stand Sunday. Look at your neighbor and say, Stand Sunday. Okay, so this is a day where churches all across the nation and the world are talking about orphans. We're talking about foster care and adoption. And the reason for this is because this is so crucial to the Lord's heart. If you've ever read through the Bible, you've probably seen all kinds of verses about how it's our duty as Christians to take care of the poor and the immigrant and the widow and the orphan. And it's because this is so crucial to the heart of God. And so we're gonna kind of share a little bit. We got the bar stools up here. We're gonna keep it kind of casual. I'll probably start yelling because I get excited and it's what I do. But we're really excited to talk to you guys about this today.
Yeah, we're super excited to be able to talk about foster care and adoption. This is something that the Lord has placed on our hearts, of course, but really across the nation. Like Joey was saying, there are thousands of churches participating in this every year, where they make their whole service about this because it is so close to the Lord's heart. We are very, very excited to be able to share a little bit about the need and what the Lord commands and how we can get involved.
We have some statistics for you here, which you'll see on the screen. You guys can go ahead and put those up.
Yeah, so just a couple of these, and you'll see some of these in a video that we're going to be watching later. But 50% of the homeless population in the United States is or has spent some time in the foster care system at some point. By the way, only 6% of Americans have spent time in the foster care system. So for that 6% to make up 50% of the homeless is like astounding right off the bat. 60% of girls and women rescued from sex trafficking raids, 75% of those incarcerated. Again, that's 6% of the population, makes up 75% of those who are incarcerated right now. So just right off the bat, we're seeing a need to intervene, and really foster care, adoption is ground zero for how we can help. And so we're going to be sharing a little bit later about prevention and how you can get involved in things. But this is the need. This is where the need is. When we change the foster care statistics, we're going to change the statistics across the nation. Joey, you have some statistics as well.
Yeah, so there's some more here that you'll see on the screen on the next slide. Foster kids compared to other kids who are in homes with their biological parents, they are 7 times more likely to have depression, 5 times more likely to have anxiety. Like they're deep emotional wounds that impact kids for life. This isn't like, they were in foster care for a little while. These are things that carry with them over the course of years and decades of their life. By the time foster youth are 24, only 50% have steady employment, right? That it's hard for them. There's a challenge for them to find steady employment. The last one that you'll see on there is that 50% develop some form of substance abuse, right? That these are things that as they learn how to cope with these things, to walk through life carrying these emotional burdens, the feelings of abandonment, these are things that lead to other problems. And so one of the things we want you to see with these statistics, and as Josh was sharing, sometimes we can look out and think, well, how do we help the homeless, right? Like we can maybe give them some food, or what's the long-term thing here? How do we really solve this problem? Or how do we stop things from happening with sex trafficking? And this really is ground zero, because they're this tiny percentage of the population that is overwhelmingly represented in all of these other areas.
Yeah, so in Ohio, just in Ohio, there's 16,000 children right now in the foster care system. There's 7,200 licensed foster care families to meet all of that need. So that means that each family needs to have about 2.5 kids just to meet that need. 3,000 kids are ready for adoption on any given day in the state of Ohio alone. So what do we do about this? What's our plan? Well, let's start with the Bible. Let's start with Matthew 25. Joe, can you read that for us?
Yeah, so if you guys have your Bibles, we're going to be in Matthew 25, 31 to 45. If not, you'll see the verses there on the screen. As always, some of you may know this. It says, when the Son of Man comes in his glory and all the angels with him, he will sit on his glorious throne. How many of you know that's going to be a good day right there? I feel like we could just spend all day right there. All right, so the nations will be gathered before him, and he will separate the people one from another, as a shepherd separates the sheep from the goats, and he will put the sheep on his right and the goats on his left. Then the king will say to those on his right, come, you who are blessed by my Father, take your inheritance, the kingdom prepared for you since the creation of the world. How many of you want to be there for that moment? He says in verse 35 here, for I was hungry and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger and you invited me in. I needed clothes and you clothed me. I was sick and you looked after me. I was in prison and you came to visit me. Then the righteous will answer him, Lord, when did we see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you something to drink? When did we see you a stranger and invite you in, or needing clothes and clothe you? When did we see you sick or in prison and go visit you? Then the king will reply, truly I tell you, whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me. Then he will say to those on his left, depart from me, you who are cursed, into the eternal fire prepared for the devil and his angels. For I was hungry, and you gave me nothing to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me nothing to drink. I was a stranger, and you did not invite me in. I needed clothes, and you did not clothe me. I was sick and in prison, and you did not look after me. They will also answer, Lord, when did we see you hungry or thirsty or a stranger or needing clothes or sick or in prison and did not help you? And he will reply, truly I tell you, whatever you did not do for one of the least of these, you did not do for me. All right, so here, this is kind of an intense passage. Can we acknowledge that here? So first of all, to set the scene, we have Christ the King enthroned over the nations. That's just the coolest picture and the most beautiful reminder that I need all the time, right? That when we look out on a messed up and broken world, Jesus here tells this story. He prophesies about the future. He says, a day is coming when the Son of Man, Christ the King, is enthroned over the nations of the world. So here we see Christ as the enthroned King, and he gathers all the nations together. And we see this story that plays out. Now, here's what I want to challenge you with here in this story. The shepherd here, he's separating the sheep from the goats. And the challenge for me, even as I read this, is when you read about those who are on the left, those who are the goats, it doesn't say they're the crazy, wild people who are off living some messed up lifestyle. Did you notice that? It doesn't say the goats are the atheists or the people who believe this crazy, wacky religion or some cult out there. There's a reversal in this story. And the reversal is that people who thought they knew the king actually turns out they don't know the king as well as they thought. And the twist of the story is that those who are separated from the sheep on the right, those who are separated from the king, those who don't receive the kingdom, the inheritance that was prepared from the foundation of the world, they're those who neglected the people who Jesus calls these brothers and sisters of mine. Go ahead.
This reminds me of the story where Jesus says, depart from me, for I never knew you. And they're like, but we cast down demons in your name, and we healed people in your name. And as charismatics, we like to get really excited about that, right? Like, I want to see people healed. I want to see people raised from the dead. I want to see people delivered from demons, right? That's exciting stuff. But this is ordinary. This is, you gave me food. You gave me drink. You visited me while I was in prison. This is ordinary. This is not the exciting. This is the mundane. And as charismatics and Pentecostals, and I promise you I'm as Pentecostal as most of you. Not going to say all of you, but most of you. But this is this is what Jesus is asking from us, to do the ordinary, to step out and invite somebody into our lives, invite somebody into our home, give them food, give them shelter, give them drink.
Yeah, so when we serve the least of these, and thanks for jumping in because I was just going to keep going, so I get excited here. When we serve the least of these, we serve the King. And I want you to think about this here for a minute. The way you and I take care of people that society overlooks, that society forgot about, people who are in prison, people who are poor, immigrants, people that, like, these are the people the Bible talks about. And specifically here, orphans, specifically people who don't have a family. There's this crazy thing that when you and I take care of them, Jesus takes it personally. When you and I take care of a child in need, Jesus sees that as us taking care of him. When we minister to them, Jesus sees it as us ministering to him. And so Jesus here, he so identifies with the lowly. He so identifies with those that society has moved on from, that society has overlooked, that to serve them is to serve him. And then when you and I are serving the least, you and I are actually serving the King who sits on his throne.
Yeah, this is commanded like time and time again in the Bible. So like a lot of people, when they hear verses about the orphans, they just think about, James 1:27, which is a great verse. Pure and spotless religion that our Father finds acceptable is taking care of the widow and orphan, right? That's a great verse. But this concept is like all throughout. Like you're going to see this in the Torah. You're going to see this in the books of history. You're going to see this in poetic books, in the prophets, in the Gospels, in the epistles. Like this is all throughout. This was so important that God the Father actually, when giving the commands to the Israelites, when giving the laws, he built this into the system. This was part of how God saw fit to govern the nation of Israel. And so I'm going to read Deuteronomy 14:28 through 29. It says this: at the end of every 3 years, bring all the tithes of that year's produce and store it in your towns, so that the Levites, who have no allotment or inheritance of their own, and the foreigners and the fatherless and the widows who live in your towns may come and eat and be satisfied, and so that the Lord your God may bless you in all the work of your hands. So right there, we see taking 33%, 1 year out of every 3 of the tithe that the whole nation put forward goes towards the fatherless and the widow and the foreigner. Like that's a big amount of their money. That's a big amount of their crops. He built it into the system.
I think for a lot of us, we have this idea that righteousness before God is about me and the Lord. Like it's my personal thing, it's my private thing, and so what you guys do is fine, and whatever happens out there is fine. But like if I do the right things, then like me and God are cool. And this idea that we see here in a lot of these verses throughout the whole Old Testament, throughout the New Testament, is that for Jesus, your righteousness is not this private thing where like, I do all these rules and I stop, partying and I start giving a little bit to the church and like now I'm righteous. And like those things are part of righteousness, but it's more than that your righteousness is not this thing that's limited to you and God, that actually your righteousness is a public thing, that how you treat other people is a reflection of our love for the Lord. And so that's why when Jesus talks about the greatest commandment, it's to love the Lord your God and to love your neighbor, right? That the way we treat these other people is a reflection of our heart for the Lord. And so the first reason that we take care of orphans is because it's what God commands us to do. But the second thing here is it's because it's what God himself does. And we want to read to you a verse from Galatians here.
Yeah, so Galatians chapter 4, verses 4 through 7 says this: but when the set time had fully come, God sent his Son, born of a woman, born under the law, to redeem those under the law, that we might receive adoption to sonship. Because you are his sons, God sent the Spirit of his Son into our hearts, the Spirit who calls out, Abba, Father. So you are no longer a slave, but God's child. And since you are his child, God has also made you his heir.
That's a good verse, isn't it? One of the reasons I like this verse is because it really challenges a lot of my own thinking, and I hope it challenges your thinking as well, that you might be thinking out here like, Joey, I hear what you're saying. Josh, I hear what you're saying. I know we have some families in the church that care about this, but I kind of have some other things, and I kind of have some other stuff that I care about. And I want to challenge you here. Adoption is not like some fringe idea in the Bible. Adoption is actually the very center of the gospel. Do you see that here? Adoption is the literal center of the gospel. In fact, the reason you are in the family of God, anybody in the family of God here? Okay, the reason you are in the family of God is because you were adopted. There's only two kinds of kids in God's family. The first kind is Jesus Christ, the eternal Son of God. And then there's the rest of us who were adopted into that family. And so this is so central to the heart of the gospel that adoption is not just what God commands or what God tells us to do. Adoption is what God did. That God brought you and I who were far from him, and he brought us near into his family. John 14:18, Jesus says this. He says, I will not leave you as orphans. I will come to you. That now you and I, we are co-heirs with Christ in the family of God. That God is not just this distant rule maker or this person who made the world a long time ago, but we call him Father.
Yeah. So we don't just talk about the gospel here, we demonstrate it. We demonstrate God's love for us by giving it to others. And so we're going to talk a little bit about how we can get involved as a church. First off, we're gonna watch a video. We're gonna be rolling something out. Those of you who have been in house church have probably seen this video. But we're gonna be starting to utilize a tool called Care Portal towards prevention of kids going into the foster care system. We're also going to talk about some other ways to get involved, not just foster care and adoption. We recognize there are some people in this room, maybe you're 17, maybe you have 5 kids already, maybe you're well past the point of raising kids. And there's not going to be an opportunity for every person at this exact moment to get involved and become a foster parent or an adoptive parent, but we can all do something. And so we're going to watch this video, and if you could just turn your attention to the screens.
Every year, more than 4 million children teeter on the brink of entering foster care. And more than 400,000 are in foster care, most of them for preventable reasons. The foster care system impacts more than you can imagine. 50% of the homeless, 60% of girls and women rescued from sex trafficking raids, and 75% of those incarcerated spent time in foster care. The foster care system is ground zero, the place where our efforts will have the absolute greatest impact on our communities. And here is the good news. So many of you care about these issues. Churches and agencies and businesses, community leaders, all want to help. What we're missing is connection. The chance to collaborate and put our networks and resources together. Care Portal uses technology to make real-time care connections for kids and families in crisis. This platform helps us make the most vulnerable children our priority, which makes them the single most powerful source for uniting and healing our communities as we serve together. Here's how it works. Caseworkers with child-serving agencies encounter needs of children in crisis every day. They enter vetted needs into Care Portal, which immediately makes local churches and community members who've joined the network aware, giving them a real-time opportunity to respond. This platform is designed to equip the local church to be at the point of care for these children and families in need. And it allows for the entire community to work together on any request. So whether it's one church that responds or a community of churches and businesses and individuals working together, Care Portal makes vital connections possible through an easy-to-use platform at your fingertips.
So many of our children and families in child welfare are isolated. They don't have a support system. Care Portal can provide not only the physical needs for the children and family, but can also provide a support system and relationships.
I look at the Care Portal as a platform for us to be able to do ministry across denomination lines, across racial lines, across social economic lines, and the mission field is in our backyard.
Sometimes, connection means meeting one need at just the right moment. At other times, connection starts life-changing relationships. When you join Care Portal, you're saying yes to connections that change lives, transform communities, and can reverse the foster care crisis in our nation. That yes makes children the priority, because every child matters, and what you do matters. Children have the power to change us.
All right, so we are really, really excited about that, and we're going to talk about some more of that here in a moment. But if we can put up the slide, we have ways for you to get involved that you'll see here. There's a number of things that we'd like to ask from everybody here, because again, as Josh was sharing, not all of you right now are at a place in life where you can welcome kids into your home immediately. Now, for many of you, that may be the case, but there's things that you can do right here and now. You'll see these first couple things here are pray and give. And I say these things because they are the starting point for what we want to do here at City Alive, but they are not the end-all, be-all. So we're going to take an offering here in a moment, and we're going to give into some ministries that are already doing these types of things. But I want to challenge you here. Let's not let praying and giving be a cop-out for the mission that Jesus gave us, okay? We cannot outsource the mission. We can't be like, well, you just go do that, and I'll just give you a couple bucks, okay? We're going to give, but then we're also going to do more to start serving these kids. And you'll see some things on here, like serving with our house churches or in our next generation ministries. Maybe you didn't know this, but there's actually families already in our church with foster kids. And so when you sign up to work with the middle school, when you sign up to hold babies in the nursery, when you serve families in your house church, you're going to be serving kids that are already in foster care.
Yeah, and let me tell you, my kids are a handful. Bless God. Yeah, they're great, though. It's wonderful. So Care Portal is an opportunity really for prevention. Care Portal is something that we're rolling out, but it's been operating for many years. It's really just beginning in this area. So we have connections with Mahoning County Children's Services. We have connections with caseworkers in different schools. And they are able to enter vetted needs into Care Portal that we have the opportunity to meet those needs. So this is going to happen solely from our house churches. So whether you attend a house church or not, you have the opportunity to give towards that budget for the house church. So you can give on the app, you can give on a check and designate it towards Care Portal, and you can designate it towards a specific need or a specific house church. But if you're wanting to be one of the people who respond when a need comes in, and there's a family who they need new clothes or new bedding or whatever, and you want to be one of the people who respond to that, and you physically go and take them those things and make that connection that hopefully is much greater than just giving them bedding or clothes, then you would need to be part of a house church to do that. So I want to encourage you to get involved with that, though. As we're just beginning this, we don't have a whole lot of stories of our own, but I know of a story down in Cincinnati where I know the pastor. I've met the woman who this is. She was the one ministered to. They've been doing this for about 4 years down at that church. She had somebody from the church come and give them a dresser. And when the people showed up from that church to give that woman a dresser, they made a connection with her. And that connection led to that woman then eventually coming to their church and eventually getting saved and then getting baptized. And now she's actually on staff at that church where she's running their foster care ministry at that church. And so as we look at this, prevention doesn't happen because we gave somebody, some clothing. Although that's commanded of you, just in Matthew 25, we see that. That's a very direct command. That's a good thing. But Care Portal gives us a greater opportunity than just donating our clothes to Goodwill. It gives us the opportunity to create a relationship. And so we're really, really excited about Care Portal. Prevention is huge because if we can keep the kids from entering or re-entering, it's a game changer. And so we're really, really excited about Care Portal. But there's other ways. So 50% of the kids who go into foster care do so because their parents are addicted to drugs. So a great way to prevent that is to get involved with drug and alcohol rehab centers. So we support Teen Challenge as a church, but we want to encourage you where you can meet those needs. Go to a alcohol and drug recovery night, an AA group, or what have you. If that's something that the Lord is calling you to, that's ministering indirectly to these kids by keeping them with their families. We have food pantries. Again, a lot of these kids are entering because their parents just don't have the money. They don't, whatever. The one time Tori and I were meeting a need through Care Portal, and we met the family, and they didn't have the money to get housing because they had just moved here. They moved in with one of their family members, and then they got kicked out of the house. They had 5 kids, and they were living in a van. And so it was 7 people living in a van, and they were on the brink of losing their kids. And so we as a church, whether you realize it or not, we stepped in and we bought them clothing for their kids, and we bought them some things that would help them with that. And another church bought them groceries, and another church bought them a few nights at a hotel. And so that we were able to come and meet that need so that they wouldn't lose their kids. And
the really cool thing about this is that it's localized. It's all based on geography. So this isn't like some need from some kid in Iowa, although, those kids need help, right? But what about what's happening right here? What about what's happening in our neighborhoods? And so how it works is that these caseworkers, and again, it's not just anybody uploading stuff. It's not like, hey, me and Kelly want a new crib for Zachariah, right? Like, that sounds fun. No, these are needs from caseworkers who are uploading this to this site about needs in our area, in our neighborhoods, in our streets, in our communities. And so we have an opportunity to step in as the church, and as Josh said, not just provide physical needs, as important as that is, but actually build lasting relationships with these families.
Yeah, and lastly, we do want to talk about foster care and adoption. Those of you who are able to consider this, are able to pray about this, and can I tell you, this was something that my wife and I, we talked about while we were dating. This is something that the Lord placed on both of our hearts. We knew this was something that we felt called to. And I can promise you that it's not easy. The first time we had a child go back to live with her mom, we were so excited about that. We love her mom. Her mom comes to church here. We were so excited. We love this family. But can I tell you, it was really hard. Because even just 4 months in, we felt like this is part of our family. Like, this girl is, and she still is. Bless God. She and her mom both now are. But it was very difficult. When we had our girls go back to live with their aunt and uncle, it was very difficult. Even now, it's like we've basically had split custody with them for months because this family wasn't ready for those 2 kids, but they stepped in. And so we want to encourage you, if this is something that, if you at all feel like I could do this, I want to say something very plainly. There is not some special grace on Tori and I or Brandon and Jess where it's like, yeah, it's just easy for us to give kids back. I promise you, it's not like all of these foster parents just, yeah, they got the grace from the Lord to do that. Yes, it takes the grace from the Lord, but it's difficult. We have emotions. I promise you, there's not one person in this room that it's like, yeah, I'm gonna sign up and it's gonna be really easy for me to have my kids go live with their family after spending a year with me. But I want to tell you, it's needed. It's commanded. And as you take that step to serve the least of these, God will give you the grace. He'll give you the peace. Even through the difficult times and the trying times, God will give you that ability. For those of you who maybe you're like, you know what, like, I'm firm about this. I can't take foster kids. Maybe adoption's a good option for you. I'll say this, local adoption is far cheaper than an international adoption. So a lot of people conflate this idea that like adoption's this crazy thing and it's going to cost you $20,000 to get a kid, and that's true for some cases. But if you're getting a local kid who has been placed for adoption, not through a private agency, typically you're looking at hundreds of dollars, not thousands and thousands. If you do foster care through certain agencies, we have a caseworker that works at Northeast Ohio Adoption Services in Trumbull County. If you do foster care through them and your kid gets placed for adoption, they cover all of your costs. It's $0 to adopt through them. $0. There's a lot of things out there that like there's so much opportunity. There is so much opportunity. If you're like, hey, I'm 80 years old, and there's no way. By the way, I know a couple who are 70, and they now have he's 20 and his younger brother is 18. They're in their mid 70s, but they got them when they were young, so they started fostering them while the parents were nearly 60. And it wasn't like this family thing. It was like, we just want to get involved. And you know what? Those kids, they don't look at them and think like, gosh, it's terrible that my parents are so old. They're like, man, it's so great that I've had parents for 18 years. Beyond that, through the different agencies, there's mentorship programs. There's something called the Bridges program. That's for kids who age out of the foster care system. So you can take them from 18 to 22, where it's like you're housing an adult. You are providing something for them, because the majority of the kids who are having these major issues aren't kids who have been adopted or reunited with their family. It's like kids who age out of the foster care system. 50% who age out of the foster care system end up on drugs. That's nuts. Just by the age of 24. And we as a church can step in and meet these needs. There's about 250, roughly, at any given time in Mahoning County that are in the foster care system. There's about 250 that call City Alive their home church. Not 250 family units, I get it. But what if we as a church said we were going to own this? We're going to own this across the board. We're going to pray, we're going to give, we're going to serve, we're going to get involved with care portals so as to stop more kids from entering. We're going to start fostering, we're going to start adopting.
We want to challenge all of you here just as we close, and we're going to give that special offering here. We'd like to ask, we don't usually ask for a specific dollar amount. We never do that kind of thing. But last week we asked each family to be willing to give $10 to this cause, $10 to this cause to support these kids in need. But we want you to know that it has to go beyond that. This cannot be just yeah, I remember that one time, Joey talked about it for a little while, and that was nice. That was a nice thing to think about these kids. This is the heart of God. This is the heart of the gospel. This is what you and I do, that we've been adopted into the family of God. And so from whatever capacity you have, let's own this task.